A warm welcome to one and all from the Holy Apple in the Holy Land. We are on Super Wednesdays here, the 13th day of the month of Sivan, 5777. Okay, today's topic, I'm not sure exactly, it might go one round, it might go 2 rounds, not exactly sure, we'll play it by ear. Today's subject, drum roll please. Today's subject is praising the Christian world. What's the problem? Right? Praising the Christian world. What if there's a problem? Maybe there's not a problem. Thank you. That's our title for today. Okay, we're going to start. This might sound familiar, and you might be wondering, what is this connected to praising Christians or the Christian world? But as the class here slowly unravels, you'll be able to catch onto the points here. Okay, we have in the Tractate of Shabbat the famous story on page 33b. Of course, it's very interesting that 33b is in Hebrew, it's lag, and it's talking about the Jewish holiday of Lag BaOmer and the mourning period that we go through from Passover to Lag BaOmer. Okay, so here's what it says. It talks about there were a group of rabbis that were together sitting, and they began a discussion. Who was sitting together? There was, number one, there was Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai was there, Rav Yossi was around, and Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. So there's 3 rabbis, and they're sitting around, and the discussion begins to roll. What's the discussion? Discussion is, what do you think, okay, what do you think about the Romans? What's your opinion on the Romans? Okay, interesting subject. So, the first speaker was Rav Yeduda Richter. He was always considered to be the first when you needed a speech. He would be the first one to open the session with his talk. So Rav Yeduda Richter stands up and he begins the following. He says the following. Hold on to your seats. He talks about the Romans and he says how beautiful are the deeds of the Romans. How beautiful are the deeds of the Romans. And look at all the marketplaces that they built up over the years here in the Holy Land and elsewhere. And look at all the bridges that they've erected in the Holy Land and other places. And look at all the bathhouses that they've opened, to keep the population clean. Tremendous, Gewalt. Well, these Romans are really, how do they say in Hebrew? Eser. Like they get the highest grade possible. Okay. Next was, it was Rav Yossi's time to speak. Rav Yossi takes the 5th. He's not saying anything. He keeps his mouth closed. Okay. Now, the 3rd speaker for today was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai comes out, he just like cocks the gun over there and he starts opening fire on the Romans. He turns to Rav Yehuda Bar Ilai. Rav Yehuda Bar Ilai, he turns to him and says, I want to tell you something. The Romans, it is true that they built tremendous amount of marketplaces, but everything that they did was for their own benefits, was for all of their various bad intentions. They made marketplaces so they could stick prostitutes, and make some money off the prostitution. That's why they made it. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai finds a negative light in every single thing that they did. Why did they build these bridges? Oh, you know why they build bridges? Because they want to make sure that everyone goes to these bridges. And then we could, we could hop them, we could grab them and charge them a toll. Like, what's it called? In New York, what's it called? Van Wicked. Yes, that's what they call it. The Van Wicked, you're going through the Van Wicked, and then you got to pay. You got to pay the toll, and there's no way out. There's no way out. So that's why the Romans, they built these bridges so they could, you have to pay the toll now. You have to pay the toll. So Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, he looks at everything Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai says, praising the Romans. He turns it around. Says everything that they did for their own benefits and for all of their lust and for all their desires of money and immodest behavior, etc. That's why they did everything that they did. What happened? There was a person. His name was Rav Yehuda ben Geri. Rav Yehuda ben Geri came home one night, speaking to his family. They said, "Hey, Abba, Dad, what happened today? Any interesting discussions in the holy learning schools?" Wow, there's an unbelievable discussion. And he goes over the whole discussion. And we know that this is a very dangerous thing. Because if you want to keep something as sensitive as that discussion between the three great rabbis, if you want to keep it secret and quiet like you should, because if it gets out, there's a danger to people's lives here. So unfortunately, Rav Yehuda ben Geri, he did not mean to turn over and to think on Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai or Rabbi Yossi for keeping quiet. But just the fact is that he told people about the discussions, and then when you start talking to people, it's only natural that it's the conversation. You tell two people tell five people tell 50 people, and it keeps on rolling. Eventually it got to the Secret Service of the Romans, and they made the following. They took it to the courts, and the courts decided the following. Rav Yehuda Bar Ilai, who spoke positively about the Roman people, he will be given a tremendous position. We recognize him. He will always be the first speaker. At any event, he opens the floor. He's the first speaker because he praised the Roman government and people. Rabbi Yossi, who kept his mouth quiet, he didn't say anything. He didn't protest against Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was bad-mouthing us. We're going to throw him, because he kept quiet, we're going to throw him out of his house, and we're going to exile him. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who bad-mouthed us, we're going to kill him. And the rest of the story is known. For 12 years, actually 13 years, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son hid out in the area of the Galil, in a place called, in a cave called, in the area of Pki'in. And in fact, today in Israel, they have tours and you can go see it. And that's the story. Okay. Who was correct? In this story, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he bad-mouthed the Romans. Rabbi Yossi kept his mouth closed. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai praised the Romans. What is the correct Jewish view of this conversation? What is the correct view? In a second Talmud, we have the tractate of Avodah Zarah, idol worshipping, second page, second side. It says the following. Okay, this conversation is going to ring a bell on the conversation that these three rabbis had. What's the Gemara say? An amazing Gemara. It says that at the end of days, Hashem is going to give reward to those righteous people, to those that sweated it out, to those that kept the commandments, to those that learned Torah and went in God's ways. And He will punish those that did not. So what happens? All of a sudden, the Romans are about to be punished. The Romans are about to be punished. And they ask for a timeout on the court. They ask for a timeout on the court. Okay, so Hashem says, okay, you got it, timeout. They said, what? Why are you going to destroy us, God? Don't you know that we built marketplaces for the sake of the Jewish people, so they could sit and learn Torah. They don't have to waste their times being merchants. Everything is ready for them. They just come into a store and they're finished. Hashem, why do you want to destroy us? You know, we built bathhouses for the Jewish people. You know, so they could go to their prayers and they could be clean and they could not have to waste their time looking for these places or doing it on their own and getting sick maybe because it's not warm water. And you know why? You know why we build bridges? To make it easier for the Jewish people, transportation. It's all for the Jewish people to learn Torah. Wow! Righteous, these righteous Romans. It's really beautiful. Hashem turns to the Romans, so to speak. He says, let me tell you something. Now this might sound familiar. Everything that you did for your own benefit and had nothing to do with the Jewish people. You are fools. You think you're going to fool God? That you did it for the Jewish people? You're fools. And then Hashem blows them away. Now folks, 1 second. I'm going to call a time out here. Not the Romans. I'm calling a time out here. What's going on? This conversation that takes place between God, so to speak, conversation between God and the Romans before Judgment Day. Come the Judgment Day on the bloody morning after. Yeah. One tin soldier rides away. This conversation, so to speak, between God and the Romans sounds exactly like the words of who? It sounds exactly like the conversation between Rav Yeduda Bar Eli, who praised the Romans for doing so much, for helping out the Jewish people, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who sounds like God, and he just blows them away and says, listen, you guys are fools. Everything that you did for yourself. You didn't do anything to help the Jewish people. What's going on? So this is, I mean, we should be flying out the windows here, you know, going through the ceiling. Why? Because it seems like Rav Yeduda Bar Eli is on the wrong side of the fence here. It sounds like Rav Yeduda Bar Eli is taking the side of the Romans that came before Hashem, before God, and then God repeats the words of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, so it seems like it's a TKO, like, bow, TKO for Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Two things. Number one, even if it was a bakol at that ma'amad during their argument, it still wouldn't be a decisive factor because we don't determine the halacha based on Shemayim. And also, it could be that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai is right. Clearly, he's right. But it could be that there is a tactical argument that can be made. You know, in other words, the Romans versus Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai is right, and God is right. But Rav Shimon Bar Yochai versus Rav Yeduda Bar Eli, it could be that there's room for tactical considerations. Al Cheshbon Emet in certain times, like you say, the Finks and the people running around to tell the Romans.
Okay, we'll touch on all those sides because there's definitely various commentators that we'll run into that hit on that point. Okay, so folks, in the meantime, okay, very interesting situation over here. We have this three-way argument between rabbis. Later on, thousands of years later in history, we have come Judgment Day, we have the Romans versus coming up against God. God uses the same answer as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The Romans are using the same argument as Rabbi Yeduda Bar Eli. Thousands of years later, nothing has changed, but it's very unusual. How do we explain Rabbi Yeduda Bar Eli here? That's a difficulty. Okay. We have in the Torah, in Deuteronomy 7:2, in the portion of the week called V'etchanan, it says there that there's a biblical prohibition. It's called Lo Techonem. Lo Techonem. Now, we're not allowed to. It's a verse that tells us we're not allowed to do something. It sounds like for free to the Gentile population. Lo Techonem. In Hebrew, chinam, free, is free of charge. What does this mean? Right, the Torah teaches us lo techonem. What exactly does it mean? So, the Talmud, in the tractate of Avodah Zarah, idol worshipping, page 20, side A, it discusses exactly the laws that we learn from these two words, lo techonem. Do not give the Gentiles over, do not give them over something. It sounds like for free. So we learn various Jewish laws from this. Number one, for example, we learn out that techonem is also similar in Hebrew to parking. We are not allowed to give the nations of the world a place to live in the land of Israel. Lo titen lehem chanaya bakarka. Do not allow, okay, idol worshippers, or we'll say Gentiles. We'll see exactly who we're talking about here in a few minutes. But we're not allowed to give the Gentile population a chance, an opportunity to settle in the land of Israel unless they agree to various conditions. But that's the law. That's one law that's learned, that we're not allowed to give places of residence to the Gentiles in the land of Israel. Another law that we learn is that we are not allowed to praise the nations. We are not lo techonem. The Talmud understands it. It takes the word techonem and it says ten chen. We are not allowed to give within the word of free. We have another word to praise, to give praise. Chen, somebody that somebody that is praiseworthy. They look somebody that has some kind of special. There's a special. Something special about his personality. That's a person who has chen, right? So, favor, person that finds favor. So we are not allowed to praise the nations of the world. And is this brought down to Jewish law, or is this discussed? Of course it's discussed, but let's look at the Jewish law. The Jewish law, before we get to the law, there should be a question we should ask here. If we open up the Bible, as I said, Deuteronomy 7:2, it looks like somebody that would be learning it would raise their hand and say, listen, you know, Brother Yehuda, I see what you're saying, but it looks to me like the Torah is talking about only the 7 nations, which means The prohibition of praising, the prohibition of allowing Gentiles to live in the land of Israel only pertains to the 7 Canaanite nations that lived here, 4,000 years ago. That's who it pertains. But today, they're gone. We don't have any Canaanite nations left. So today, everything is cool. You could praise Gentiles, you could allow them to live in your country because they're no longer the 7 nations. So let's get the record straight. This is not so. It is true that there is a very small, capital letters, even though it's small, we would think they're small letters, but we're going to put the capital letters. There is a very, very small minority opinion in Jewish law that this pertains only to the 7 nations and no other Gentiles. However, the overwhelming 99% of the halachic, of the Jewish law, the major Jewish laws that we go by, major opinion, hold that these laws pertain to not only the 7 nations when they were around thousands of years ago, not only does it pertain to idol worshippers, but it also includes any Gentile that's not a Noahite or that's not a resident stranger, a ger toshav. Once again, I'm going to lay it on one more time. According to the overwhelming opinion of the major Jewish authorities, and it's brought down in the Code of Jewish Law, it's brought down by the famous Rav Yosef Cairo, the author of the Code of Jewish Law. It's brought down in Yoredea 151:14. Let me just make sure that 151. Where are we here? Yes. It's brought down by the Tur. It's brought down by the Shach. They bring down this law that what we're talking about, when you're not allowed to give praise, when you're not allowed to give the land of Israel over to Gentile hands, who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? We're talking about not only the 7 nations. We're not only talking about idol worshippers. We're talking about, Gentiles. We're talking about Muslims. We're talking about Muslims. This is brought down. The Shach, who's the major commentator on the Code of Jewish Law, he says, he brings down that Rav Yosef Karo and others bring down that this includes not only idol worshippers, but includes the Muslims who are not, according to most opinion, the Muslims are not idol worshippers. And it includes them. It includes them also. So we have a big crowd here. We have the 7 nations, we have idol worshipping like the Christians, and we have regular Gentiles like the Muslim community. Who is exempted from this law? 2 types of Gentiles. Number 1, Noahites that believe in one God and observe this, what they call the 7 commandments of Noah, even though when you really look into it, there's many, many more commandments that, that they are connected to. And a resident stranger. A resident stranger is a Gentile that wants to live in the land of Israel, and he believes in one God, and he observes the 7 laws of Noah, and he's willing to keep his head low, and he understands that he has no national, rights. He has personal, he has personal rights and social rights that he has, but he cannot, even though he's a righteous person, he's a righteous Gentile, he's not allowed to have some kind of a national position or in the land of Israel. So the fact is that because he's a resident stranger, he's allowed to live in the land of Israel. We are allowed to praise him, say good things about him. We are allowed to give him presents. And he just can't live in Jerusalem. He just can't live in, even though he's righteous, they can't live in Jerusalem. So these are two exceptions, the Noahites and the resident strangers. Okay, so now after just that has to be understood. It's a very, very important point. So don't come to us and say, oh, that was talking about then when there were 7 nations, but it doesn't apply today. It applies today. Let's look at the words of the Rambam. The Rambam, we said, just like Rav Yosef Karo, of course the Rambam is way before Rav Yosef Karo. Rav Yosef Karo was over 500 years ago, the Rambam over 800 years ago. And here's what he writes. In the Laws of Idol Worshipping, the 10th chapter, the 6th law, it says the following: we are not allowed to praise. We are not allowed to praise the nations. And we are not even allowed to say what a handsome Gentile I see over there. What a pretty woman, Gentile, I see over to the side, over there. We're not even allowed to say, well, that's some kind of haircut. Wow, some kind of dress that woman has. If they're non-Jews, we are not allowed to even praise their looks. Not only that, Rambam says how much more so if we're not allowed to, hey, I like that dress, I like that shirt, hey, I like those, today some kid told me that he paid like, I don't know, like $50 to buy jeans that have holes in them already, I mean, like when I was a kid, till I got to that situation where I had holes, like it took me a while to get to there. But today, you have to pay money to buy new pants, and they come with the holes ready already. Think about that one. They say suckers are born, a few million in a second. So how much more so if you're not even allowed to praise their beauty, their looks? How much more so you're not allowed to praise their actions. You're not allowed to praise their actions. Or you are not allowed to speak highly about various things that they do. It finds like a place in your heart, like, wow, this guy's a great guy, what he does is a great thing. You're not allowed to do that. This all comes under one umbrella. The umbrella is lo tichonem. You are not allowed to give out praises to the nations of the world. Once again, nations of the world, 7 nations, idol-worshipping nations, the Muslims, and only righteous people, only righteous Gentiles, Noahites, and the resident strangers, they're the exception to the rule. And the idea is why? Why are we allowed to do this? Why should it bother me to compliment to a friend of mine or to a neighbor, to my next door neighbor, John? Why should I have a problem complimenting John? Listen to the words of the Rambam. Very interesting. They should not find favor in your eyes. Why not? Because if they begin to find favor, if Gentiles, if they begin to find favor in our eyes, we will begin to come closer to them, and we will come to follow and copy their ways, and we will learn from many of their actions, which are bad, evil. This is an amazing thing. When you start cuddling up and praising the nations, the idol-worshipping nations, the Christian world, the Muslim world, when you start cuddling up with them, praising them, you create a bridge. And this bridge is not a good thing. this bridge is a terrible thing. This is a bridge that must be cut off. And therefore, we are not allowed so we have these, once we start praising the nations of the world, the Christian nation, the Muslim nations, all those that do not observe, to believe in one God, all those that do not observe the 7 Noah commandments. Once we start praising them, it builds a bridge, it builds a relationship between us, and then we start learning from them, and we start taking bad habits from them. We become influenced, we become assimilated. Think about that. How many people in our times, in our days, there are Jews that are running around instead of trying to save the Jewish souls, and how many are there? You know, there was just recently, about a month ago, there was a group called Chotam, Seal, and they did a, I think, 15-year study on the various populations, sectors in the land of Israel, the religious the sector of people, the Haredi section, the more orthodox section of the religious population, the traditional population, the secular population, for like, I think, 15 years. And there is a lot of amazing statistics there, but one that's really amazing is that 46% of kids, boys and girls, that grew up in a religious home, in a religious, what they call a dati home, when they get older, when they are in their teens or early 20s, they leave the path. If I'm not mistaken, it's called OTD, off the derech, or OTP, off the path. They leave the fold. 46% compared to the Haredi community, the more orthodox, the black hat community. There, the percentage of kids that grew up in those homes, only 8% leave when they're older. Only 8%. So the tremendous difference, what they call the modern Orthodox, the Madaks. So instead of these Jews going around and saving these souls, we have Jews today who have tremendous amount of time on their hands. They finish with all the Jews. They've finished being mikarev, bringing closer all these lost Jewish souls, that they can go out into the world, to the Christian world, and they could start hugging the Christians. I once heard from a great rabbi, there was once a great rabbi who spoke before a anti-religious kibbutz in Israel. And in the middle of his talk, one of the kibbutznikim, one of the farm workers, raises his hand to interrupt the rabbi and says, "Rabbi, I have a problem with you religious Jews." "Yeah, what's the problem? What's the problem?" "Why do you hate dogs? Why do the religious people hate dogs?" Now, I hope Mike didn't hear this. I'm going to be in real trouble. Or maybe I should send Mike over to this kibbutznik guy to set him straight, Hey, Mike, he has all these dogs, You come here, I don't know if you hear, sometimes in the background, you can even hear these dogs barking. We love dogs. But anyways, according to this person's view, this farmer's view, why do the religious people hate dogs? Which, of course, is not true. So the rabbi turned to him and said an unbelievable, now listen to this. If you get this down in your life, you got everything now. Listen to what the rabbi said and remember it all your life. All our life. Me included. He said the following. That God created us with a certain amount of energy, gas. You know, you fill up a tank, so you have a certain amount of miles that you can go. But that's it. So God created us with a certain amount of energy. If the energy that we have, God wants us first to care for our parents, for our children. All our love, all our thought, all our time, give it over to your kids. Give it over to your wife. Give it over to your husband. You got more energy with you? Great. You got more energy? You got some spare time on your hands? Beautiful. Now, we're going to go to our neighbors. Yeah, we're going to go to our neighbors and see if they need any help. You have more? You're unbelievable. You know, you're really one of these superstars. You have more strength and energy and time and money and patience to love not only your wife, your husband, your kids, your parents, and also your neighbors on each side, or maybe 4 sides, north, west, south, east. Oh, you know what? You could join, come out and let's demonstrate for righteous causes. Let's try to help others outside of our neighbors. So God created us with a limited amount of love. And there are people that their love goes to their dog. And there's no more love for anyone else. Except for their dog. Except for their cat. Except for their guinea pig. Except for their roosters. Whatever it might be. There are many people like that. They have tremendous amount of patience for animals. When it comes to human beings, they're down our throats. And that's the message here. That was the rabbi. He was telling him, we don't have anything against dogs. But we're limited. We're limited in our love and our strength that we could, to dedicate to others. So therefore, first we try to get, our family, our wives, our kids, and then we try to get our neighbors, and then maybe move a little bit out. And sometimes we don't have enough, we don't have any more gas for dogs. It's an amazing thing. Think about these people. They're going around. This is a tragedy. Tragedy is a nice word. They are going around when there are so many Jews who are disconnected to anything that smells Jewish. There are so many of them in the land of Israel. 46% did we say? We said. And they take their strength and their time and their efforts to hug and to bring closer. Who? Christians, idol worshippers. Amazing. Really amazing. That is what is wrong. The Rambam, the Code of Jewish Law, says it straight out. If you start praising the idol-worshipping world, the nations of the world who do not observe the 7 commandments of Noah, do not believe in one God, when you start praising them, when you start finding favor in your eyes, you've built a bridge. You're one step closer to being assimilated, to have your Jewishness affected. Stay away from that. Destroy those bridges. Do not open your mouth. Do not look. Do not praise. Even in beauty. To say, wow, look how beautiful, look how handsome those people are. You build a link, a connection. And that's the beginning of assimilation. That's the beginning of the end. So the Torah wants to come before we get to that cliff and fall off. The Torah tries, like with everything, it stops us way before. It stops us way before so we don't come close. Because once you come close to that cliff, one wrong move, baby, and you down. You fall off. The wind comes, you fall off. Why? Because you didn't keep your distance. Keeping your distance, you keep your safety. You keep your Judaism. Another angle of this. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who spoke negatively about the Romans. Today, the culture, if you can call it that, what we see today before our very eyes, that's really an extension of the good old Roman days. What we see, the evil, the cruelty that was commonplace, the gladiators, the sports, the animals that would attack people in the Colosseum, the bulls, and we're not talking about the Chicago Bulls. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai looked the world in the eye. And when Jacob meets up, after 22 years, Jacob was in the White House, or some might say he was in the house of Lavan, which in English we could translate it, instead of the house of Lavan, we'll just translate it as the White House. So he was in the White House for 22 years. And then he meets up with no other than Esau, his brother. And his brother is with 400 guys, and the 400 people are coming to kill Jacob. And it says that they come together, Jacob bows down, Jacob's wives bow down, the children bow down, only Binyamin did not bow down. Jacob's son, the youngest son, Binyamin did not bow down. And then it says in the Torah, in the portion of Vayishlach in Genesis, it says there, we're at if not mistaken, 33rd chapter in Genesis, 33rd, 34. It says there that Esau kissed him. But there's something very interesting on that word kiss. There's all these little dots over there. And when the Torah has dots, it means something here is greater than meets the eye. Something here below the surface is going down. So the word in Hebrew to kiss is very similar to bite. Vayishakeu, vayinshacheu. To kiss and to bite is very close in Hebrew. The difference is a millimeter. And then Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says the following Jewish law, that it is law that Esau hates Jacob. It is law. It's an amazing thing. It is law. That's the way it is. That Esau hates Jacob. Now, in later years, the rabbis explained to us that there is no discrepancy between what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is saying and what it looks like in the text. It looked like in the text that Esau kissed Jacob and made up. So the rabbis in later generations explained it so beautifully. The Netziv of Volozhin, the Griz Halevi, and many others explain it. There is no discrepancy here. Esau has two tactics. Throughout most of the history, the Gentiles used the biting, killing, crusades, inquisitions. That was their tactic. Now in our days that doesn't work so well in order to win over hearts. So now they're taking the second tactic of Esau, and that is to kiss the Jewish people, to kiss up to the Jewish people, to give money. Once you give money to a Jew, you bought him. If Moses says that money will change the words of the righteous, that's the righteous. How about people that aren't so righteous? Money, you give them money for a wing in your school, a hospital. Go all over Israel. There's almost no place you can't miss it. All over the buildings, in lights, talks about various Christian organizations with their love tactic in our times. There is no difference. When it's good for Esau, he uses the biting, he uses the killing. When it's no longer PC, baby, so he goes to the love. Love us to death. It's all for the same goal. The same goal is to assimilate the Jewish people and to bring us over to the false Messiah of JC, to Jesus. It says, in the tractate of Sotah, it says on page 42, side B. Listen closely. It talks about the mother of Goliath. The mother of Goliath was none other than the daughter-in-law of Naomi, the righteous woman from the land of Israel, who we read about in the book of Ruth on the holiday of Shavuot last week. And when the prophets want to explain the tremendous strength that Goliath possessed, they only tell us one piece of information. If I wanted to speak about somebody that was strong, I would start from the beginning. I would start, the arm muscles, the grip, and the muscles, and the biceps, and then, work your way down. Torah is very concise. It says that he had a sword. That's tremendous strength. Everybody has a sword. Like in Israel, you go on the street, like everyone's packing heat. Everyone has a gun in their back pocket. Everyone's carrying a gun around here, so everyone's carrying a sword. That is supposed to explain to us the tremendous strength. So listen to what the Talmud says. Talmud tells us an unbelievable lesson. The word that's used here to express that sword that Goliath used is called a chetz. Chetz chanito. The spear of the sword. Chetz could also mean, instead of the spear, it could also mean half. Chetzi in Hebrew, half. So the Torah says, Rabbi Elazar teaches us that why does it use the word to express the courage and strength of Goliath? Why does it use this additional word of the spear? Because it's coming to teach us that the Torah does not even bring in half of the possibilities that we could explain the courage and the strength of Goliath. The Torah specifically, on purpose, plays it down. It only brings in a word or two in order not to do what? In order not to praise wicked people. And then the Torah concludes, the Talmud concludes here. From this we learn that it is forbidden to say praises of the wicked. So the Talmud asks, if that's so, why does it tell us at all that Goliath was a strong person? Okay, it didn't go all the way. It didn't go 50% of the way to tell us how strong he was and courageous. But it does tell us something. Half. That's only not to praise him. That's only to praise David. That David, in order that we understand how courageous King David was to go up against this giant, so the Torah has to give us a piece, a small portion to understand that this was a very strong man. Not to praise his strength, but to praise David in that with all the strength of Goliath, he did not back down in the fight. He went and stood his ground and fought and won. So, take it back one step. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that it is law, it is known that Esav hates Jacob. Esav hates Jacob. We said that we are not allowed to praise. We are not allowed to praise idol-worshipping nations. Nations, Gentiles that do not believe in one God and the 7 commandments of Noah. We're not allowed to praise them. Why? Because if you're a Gentile and you do not believe in one God and you do not observe the 7 commandments of Noah, you are wicked. And here's a second angle. Our first angle was don't build bridges. Don't praise them. Don't have them find favor in your eyes. Why? Because that's the first step to assimilation. In assimilation in ideas and assimilation in life and in practice and in marriage and in concepts and in the Jewish idea. But here we have the other side of the coin here. It's the same coin. But if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're not a righteous Gentile, then you're a wicked Gentile. And if you're a wicked Gentile, what in the world is a Jew going around and praising idol worshippers? Because we just said now, from this the Talmud learns in the Tractate of Sota 42b, we learn that you are not allowed to pray. You are not allowed to speak highly, to praise wicked people. And therefore the Torah only told us one or two words about the strength of Goliath. It teaches us the lesson here. Do not praise wicked people. And if you're not following the Noahide laws and you're not believing in one God, then you are wicked. And all these Jews that are running around today and bringing unbelievable, there is no forgiveness for this. Bringing children to hear them, to speak with them, to play with them, to burn the bridges. To create the bridges. All these bridges that are being created. For who? For these idol worshippers. For people that still believe in JC. People that are trying through love and volunteering and kindness to bring the Jewish people to assimilate, it's all about relations. This wicked guy Waller, his famous saying, it's all about relations. And he's right. Because they're doing, unfortunately, a good job. Because there's a lot of suckers out there. There are a lot of Jewish suckers out there. That if you look at them kindly, well, the love that they will give you Just look at them kindly. See the love. So today, this is the new tactic. It's the tactic of the kiss of Esav. But the goal is the same goal. We'll end with another dispute between Rabbi Yossi, the same Rabbi Yossi, and the same Rabbi Yeduda Richter. Check this out. In the tractate of Bechorot, before we get to this, I think we'll save that piece for next week. I want to say something over that's very important. So far, we've spoken about not praising, disconnecting. We've spoken about wicked people, not praising wicked people, and they're tied in together. There's another aspect here. There's another disastrous aspect here. Listen closely. It says in the tractate Sota on the 47th page, it says the following, that when, if you remember the story of Genesis, Abraham leaves the land of Israel because there's a famine. He comes with his wife Sarah, and they come down to Egypt, and Sarah says, and Abraham says that this is my sister, and then they kidnap Sarah. And all of a sudden, Pharaoh understands he gets punished by God with tremendous boils, skin diseases, and he comes and he says to Abraham, here, I'm giving you all these presents, just take them and leave. But he just didn't say, take the presents and leave. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt himself, went out, and 4 steps he accompanied Sarah and Abraham. In Hebrew, it's called a livui, accompaniment. When you have a guest, there are 3 commandments that a person has when he has a guest, and it's called eshel, which is abbreviation aleph, food, achila. You have to give a person food if he's a guest in your house. Number 2, sheina, okay, or shtia, giving them drink, allowing them to sleep in your home. Last one, okay, is livui, is giving them a company. And when they leave your house, you have to at least walk 4 steps and accompany them. And the king of Egypt, the mighty powerful king of Egypt, who has thousands, tens of thousands of servants to send Abraham and Sarah off on their way, he gets up off of his seat. And he gets up off of his can, and he goes and he accompanies them. It says in the Torah, because of this accompaniment, for every step that he took, Pharaoh took, the Jewish people were subservient to the Egyptians for 100 years. 100 times 4, 400 years we were subservient. What in the world is going on? This is a great deed, no? Pharaoh wakes up in the morning and he understands that he made a mistake. He looks at himself, he looks at his skin condition, and he's doing repentance here. Isn't this a great act? What in the world is going on here? Why are the Jewish people suffering because of this accompaniment? So listen closely. According to the commentator, the Marsha says no. Don't understand it in that light. Don't think that because of the fact that Pharaoh accompanied Abraham and Sarah, the Jewish people were punished, or Abraham was punished. Because Abraham didn't ask to be accompanied. It was Pharaoh on his own intuition. He's the one that got up, and he's the one that accompanied. So don't think. It just means that because of the fact that he accompanied him, that the Egyptians would be the ones that would be the masters over the Jewish people. They would be responsible for the Jewish people because of the merit of Pharaoh they would be responsible for the Jewish people. See, the truth is that if the Egyptians were okay, if the Egyptians were good people, they could have had the Jewish people in their land, and we could have been there for those years, and everything would have been dandy, everything would have been fine, and we would have left. But they didn't do that. They took a hard hand, and they enslaved us, and they did terrible things to the Jewish people, and they killed Jewish babies. They did terrible actions against the Jewish people. But according to what could have been, is that Pharaoh would have received because of his mitzvah, the commandment that he did, and he accompanied, even though he's such an important person, he accompanied Abraham and Sarah. Because of that commandment, he could have received the Jewish people in his country, and there would have been a tremendous blessing because of the Jewish people in his country, and he could have been, economically, he could have flourished here. And he could have used the Jewish labor in a nice fashion, Jews will help us out and we'll pay them, and they're our servants, but we're treating them nicely. Could have been worked out well. That's according to the Marsha. But listen to this opinion here. This is an unbelievable. The Or HaChama says the following. Rav Zundel Krozer, he writes on his commentary on the Talmud. Listen to this. He brings down what the Marsha says, that don't make any connection between Abraham and Pharaoh, or Abraham and being responsible for us being enslaved for 400 years. Don't make that connection. No. But now he says, listen to this. He says it's very possible that we could understand the Talmud exactly like it sounds. What does it sound like? That there really was a gripe against Abraham. Abraham should not allow Pharaoh to accompany him. Why? Because there's a general rule in the Torah. It's brought down in dozens of places. Chesed leumim chatat. Even when the Gentiles do good actions, it becomes a sin. It becomes a sin for the Jewish people. It becomes a boomerang for the Jewish people. When the Gentiles do good actions, God looks at the Jewish people and he says, hey, where are the Jews? Why aren't they also doing such good actions? It becomes a boomerang against us. It prosecutes the Jewish people because God's looking at a good act by a Gentile, and then he's looking at the Jewish people who are not doing the same good actions. So he's saying, hey, look, where's my people? And then he punishes the Jewish people. So this is a terrible situation. And those people, these Jews that are going around and opening up their homes and opening up their centers for these Gentiles, and they're accepting their money, they are exactly going against Jewish law. Because Jewish law says do not accept money from these the nations of the world, the idol worshippers, or those that do not believe in one God and do not observe the 7 commandments of Noah, the Muslims, and the Christians. So therefore, we have an additional tragedy here. Not only relations, praises, assimilation. We also have another angle here, a tremendous angle here. And this is brought down dozens of times in the Torah, that Abraham is responsible for the downfall of the Jewish people. Why? He should have told Pharaoh, the Gentile, please do not accompany me. Don't give him merit, because it's going to boomerang against the Jewish people. And this is why the Or HaChama says, the commentator says the following. This is why by Jacob, he refused to, if you remember when Esav wants to accompany Jacob after the 22-year reunion, Esav wants to accompany Jacob, but Jacob refuses. And he starts telling, listen, I have kids here, and I have older people, and it's hard for them to walk. We'll be okay. We're not at your pace. Please don't accompany us. Why did he do that? He did that because the Torah teaches us, do not give out merit. If you have no choice, you have no choice. But don't look for it. Don't look for it, because the Torah tells us that when they run out of merit, it's all over for them. It's curtains for them. Once their merit is over, the Gentiles' merit, the wicked Gentiles, once their merit is over, and they have no, they have no money in the bank, so to speak, they have no commandments in the bank, no good deeds in the bank, they're finished with. So a Jew comes around and accepts from them something, this is prolonging idol worshipping. And therefore Jacob refused to have Esav, his brother, accompany him. And this is also what it says in the tractate of Bava Batra on the 11th page, that you are not allowed to accept charity from the nations of the world. Why? Because the fact is that if we do not allow them to, if we do not receive from them, therefore their wickedness will disappear much, much quicker. And if we accept from them, we're prolonging wickedness and false idol worshipping and false ideas in the world. Stay tuned, God willing, next week for the final part of the series.